Hello, everyone, and welcome to Moonride. I have a really special interview today with two lovely channels who I work with, Ann Weber and Anita Sacco. These are two people who I met along the way who I've had a real pleasure working with. These two have really, really helped me with so many different issues as I do my own channeling personally and for others. And I just can't say enough about how amazing their abilities are. I'd like to go ahead then and start with Anne, because Anne actually had a really good question for me.
Well, I would like to know, how did you decide we were so terrific?
Well, I saw you guys were terrific in two different ways. Um, and you were actually my client. And whenever I go into a space with my clients, I actually see a sort of corral universe when it's just not when I'm doing political stuff, but when it's a person, I see a square corral like on a ranch. And it's sort of what shows up. And the first thing that showed up for Anne was dancing zebra. The zebra was dancing with you in that court, and as I recall, you were kind of laughing because um, first of all, you run a horse farm, but second of all, zebras are black and white. And that kind of indicates zebras and things like this that people are working in both conscious and unconscious ways. They're being very intuitive in their lives. That was the first thing. The other thing is your corral opened up to a huge and beautiful forest. And I think I actually described the forest that you live in. I was like, wow, there's so much going on here. When these kinds of things happen, it lets me know the person is doing intuitive work. And I would say maybe 30%, even maybe 20% of people, I often see things that indicate to me that they're doing intuitive work. And then it just builds from there. I mean, your forest was huge. It wasn't just a forest, it was enormous. And of course, you live in an enormous forest, so it made a lot of sense. Anita, I came to actually just via email, and we started chatting, and I was like, wow, this woman's got a lot of insight, just got a lot going on, and she's very earnest in asking her questions. I definitely remember that you're very earnest and maybe a little bit shy about it, but you're like, look, I want to know more. And once we talked, it became clear that she was pretty intuitive. I think I forget what indicated to me that you were pretty intuitive, but the emails were fascinating. And when we did Skype, you had answers for me. I mean, basically, both of you kind of secret. Here's a secret. I tested you both out in my own way. I asked questions that only spirit could know the answer to. And you guys were really accurate. Anita, for example, one time I had a ghost in my new apartment in the basement, my new house, I should say. And I would go down to the basement. I feel kind of this coldness, felt a child, maybe a child who'd been punished down there. And so I took some sage and I sent the ghost to the light. And the next day I sent Anita an email. So what should I do about the ghost in my basement? And she said, not you should, but did you already sage and send that ghost to the light? And I had just done that. So both of you did things that absolutely confirmed to me your talents. And since then, it has been confirmed about 10,000 times. Sometimes it's not just what people answer, it's the depth of the answer. Behind a question, there's often a bigger question. So one question I think I asked about my great grandfather, who was an orphan, and I want to know who he was. And aside from some details about his parentage, I think Anita also said something about this is where you get your gifts. So it went to the heart of my question, not just the question, which impressed me. Yeah. And Anita, you had another question too that you wanted to ask.
What I wanted to know is, when you were connecting with Anne and I, were you getting insight from your guides? Were you getting intuitive messages, images, clear yes, no, go with these people?
Good question. You know, I did take a look at both of you when I did my channeling. I did, pull in the energy of the man in the moon, and I'm pretty sure they sent me just very positive images of both of you. I can't recall that. Maybe I should note for everybody that, all of us have asked that we are protected and that those who come to us are going to be benefited from our help. So we didn't really set that in place yet because I hadn't met you both, but that's how we might do it now. But yeah, I did do that. I also continued to just have interactions with you that were always very positive and were always very much informed. Let's see, what else did I do? And then, of course, there was that method where I sort of tested you guys both out. So yeah, I did, to be honest. All right. So let me ask you guys some questions. And maybe I'll start here with Anita. How did you work with your gifts and talents before we all met?
Before the three of us started working together, I pretty much kept myself quiet
Mm-hmm.
and in secret, so to speak. I would help people that might find themselves to me, and knew that I could help them. They knew that I was psychic because that's how they found me. That they were getting guided to be with me. But when I first connected with you, Dave, it was just a knowing that this man is like the real deal, and that you were seeing and hearing in a way that I see and hear in many ways, and it felt guided to connect with you. And then when I met Anne, it was just, I felt like I've known her forever. It was just, and it was easy. There wasn't work to talk to either one of you.
Yeah, yeah. It was very smooth, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, great. And what about you, Anne? What'd you do before we met?
Well, I'm your basic average bear. I wouldn't have said I was psychic, and I still don't think that I am. I think I'm a channel. I knew there were presences around me, and for years I'd been doing journaling with an ask and listen format, but I didn't know who was coming through. But 4 or 5 years ago, I started working with Richard Burton, which was a shock to begin with. But we've gotten used to each other by now. And now, who is sending me people for a blog, I'm working with a lot of, it's like exponential, having worked with the two of you. So, yeah, it's a huge change, but I think there was a background there. Always, it just needed to have the encouragement and what Anita said of having people for whom this is normal, which I think it really is a lot more normal than our culture allows it.
Yeah, and I do have recently, just in the past few days, lots of people emailing me about doing this work. And yeah, I think that there is a difference between being a channel and being a psychic. Could either of you just say one word or 2 words about that? That seems like a really important point. What do you think, Anita? Do you think there's a difference?
Yes, I do. When I do a reading for someone, I'm actually connecting with my guides or with source, asking for information for the person's highest good. And many times they'll give me parts of it in an image, or I'll hear something, or there's a knowing, and it's channeled. It's not something that I'm sensing. Being just psychic is more of an intuitive feeling, a sixth sense feeling, and not getting it from it could be from your higher source. I don't work that way. I actually connect with people or spirits on the other side of the veil.
Great. And maybe I could ask you the same question. And how is channeling different?
Channeling is like a conversation. And because I'm clairaudient and I transcribe what I'm hearing, I'm transcribing thoughts, not words or sentences or like dictation. It has a life of its own. It almost feels like it's separate from me. It's not quite like being a telephone, but a little bit. But now I'm incorporating runes with it, and it's got a different depth with the runes, which have all different kind of connotations for the questions that clients ask, or what we're asking ourselves. And combine that with what the folks you're talking to have to offer. And as Anita said, it's not like a blinding flash of light.
Yeah. Okay, great. So you guys kind of mentioned that I had encouraged you to expand. I want to ask you the question because I don't necessarily know. Okay. What did I do? How did I encourage you to expand?
I will tell you what one of the things.
Yeah.
You have a way of making this process seem normal.
Mhm.
So when roadblocks appear, oh, this is a nothing. This is what you would expect. It's very normal. I mean, so we're going along here doing, you know, yeah, you wouldn't want to necessarily, tell your third grade teacher what you're doing, but uh, it it feels very normal, and it also feels that you can make mistakes and it's fine. You just keep going and you keep expanding. And I think both Anita and I have expanded, I'd say exponentially, since we started doing this work with you.
Hmm. Well, it certainly has helped that you guys also worked together much of the time. For example, when I was in Japan, I was a little worried. I'm like, oh, I'm leaving, but I was kind of glad to see how well you guys solved so much of your problems. It was seamless for me, just absolutely seamless. And how about for you, Anita? What worked?
I think what Ann said is that you and Ann both made it normal. When I would contact you and as I expanded, because I am expanding, and it's that spirit it's not like I'm requesting this. It's like,
Yes.
oh, I might go into meditation the next, like now I'm taken up a mountain on occasion to the Rainbow Bridge
Hmm.
by my spirit guides, and it's people that want to talk to Ann.
Yeah.
And I don't have an explanation. I just know it's what I have to do. And the first time that happened, I remember emailing Ann saying, at the risk of you running under the bed, so and so has asked to speak with you, and she was really cool about it. I thought, you guys are going to think I'm really insane, but you don't. You embrace you embrace the gift, and that's so awesome. I feel like I was given a lifesaver. I was in the water, and you guys basically appeared.
Wow, great. Now, maybe while we're on that topic, I can ask you, Anita, how do you connect? Because you mentioned the Rainbow Bridge, and I just not only find this fascinating, I find the evolution of how that happened. So feel free to give a long answer.
Well, I have the ability, when I start my meditation, it's really a journey.
Mhm.
And recently, Richard identified it almost as a lucid journey, where there are times when I actually can see myself in the other side, but most of the time, it's just crossing the veil almost immediately.
Mm.
And usually, Richard and Merlin are waiting for me, and it's just depending on what the task is at hand, I guess is the best way of explaining it.
Mm.
And there's some days, today was one of them, where they'll each grab an arm, and I can literally see myself being run up the side of a mountain. I can see the rocks on the ground, and I'm
Wow.
taken to the top of this mountain, and there are many spirit. Jesus is waiting. There's a lot of my guides are waiting. The archangels are there, and then this most beautiful bridge.
Mm.
It covers over and almost like the Grand Canyon. It's
Yeah.
not larger, but it's beautiful with rainbows and colors. And on the other side, there are all these spirits like lining up to cross over. And Metatron, Archangel Metatron, is the coordinator, so to speak.
No
And
kidding.
it's his, and I believe it's almost a protection for me. And there's all these people, and I can see some of the people that have been there, but eventually somebody, like what I call, breaks out from the herd, and I'll
Ah.
start walking over, and then they'll be on my side. And well, today it was Abraham Lincoln with with Harriet Tubman on his side, and I can hear their messages very clearly. And Abraham Lincoln, his tone, his energy was so powerful, but so gentle, and asking very kindly if I would pass the message to Anne, that
Mm.
he would like her to connect with him, because he has an important message for the people that he wants on her blog. And then Auntie is Auntie, because she's strong, she's direct, and basically tell Miss Annie she's got to get going here. She basically has to do this.
Yeah.
And so, and today was interesting, because I usually spend more time on that side, having my own fun after I come down the mountain. But today it was like, you got to get back, and you got to get back and email Ann and part of that is sometimes I don't have the memory. It goes, like I'll start typing,
Yeah.
and then the vision fade. I don't remember, it fades. But I couldn't do this several months ago. It just started, it just started happening. And I remember the first time it happened, you both were incredibly supportive. And I think if I hadn't had that, it might have shut down, because I thought it's very easy for ego to get in the way, to say you didn't really have that experience, or the other side is you must be really crazy.
Right, right.
But you both just embrace, and Anne, seriously, she embraced every messenger I bring to her.
Right.
So I'm grateful for that.
They turned out to be really true, really accurate. I mean, those people were waiting to talk to.
And I believe I've had some messages for you too, Dave. I don't remember them, but I've had a few for you also.
They were really accurate. Maybe you could touch on this too, Anne, and I'm also interested in, how you connect.
Well, I'm always surprised that I can. I don't see the Rainbow Bridge. If I didn't have Anita, well, sometimes I do. I did feel John McCain. I feel Rich Burton all the time because I've been talking to him for years. But some of the others, Catherine Sienna, I did feel, but some of them that she had me talk to, I wouldn't have even dreamed of it. And when she said Gandhi, I'm like, sure.
That one.
But in fact, he didn't want to talk to me. He wanted to talk to Anita. So I ask and I transcribe what I hear. And it's usually so fast that my typing is absolutely terrible. But I don't know what it says, particularly when I'm done. And it is, I feel like I'm a one-trick pony. If you ask me to connect to somebody and they're there, I seem to be able to do that, at least if Anita does, or you do. But I don't see them ahead of time.
Okay. So one thing that's kind of interesting is that we do this in very different ways. And I hope we can, put out the message that, I had one client and everything was about hearing. If he heard music, he knew what we was doing. And it turned out he wrote operas, so it made perfect sense. People do get there in different ways, right? Maybe I think it's an important note just to say about protection. Maybe I'll go right to Anita. What do you do to protect? Because there are dark spirits out there that we need to be careful of. How do you do that?
Well, quite a few years ago, I was guided to create a spray with aromatherapy. A group of my guides are the Arcturians. They're ninth dimensional beings from the planet Arcturus, and I call them Joe. And just as a backdrop, I actually asked another psychic who saw them, why am I calling them Joe? Because they're a collective. They're 5, but they said Joe, and they said they're named after the human father of Jesus the Christ, Joseph, who brought that loving energy of protection. So they wanted me to call them Joe, and they gave me the recipe of frankincense and myrrh, lavender and rose, and in a spray. And I always spray before I do any kind of channeling, but I also call in Archangel Michael, who is, if people have known me, he's my best friend. I highly recommend him to anyone who needs help. And he's there, and as well as Merlin. So I always ask for protection. And they haven't let me down yet. Even when I have seen some of the darkness, or I felt the darkness attached to me, they actually have come in and removed it. Which also cautioned me to be more careful, because there are times when I might forget, and it's not a good thing.
Yeah, great. Maybe we can even mention that there was dark forces at some point. How was it? How did you know? How did you know it wasn't the light?
Well, one time I had just finished a reading for someone, and I was sitting here and I happened to feel something, and I turned, and there was this black arm coming through like a crack in the veil, just literally coming out to come for me, and it was headed for I just knew it wanted to put its hands around my throat. And I knew it was bad, and I immediately called for Merlin and Michael for help. I just said, help me, and they showed up, and there was a little battle that I actually saw, and then it went away. And I contacted Ian, who contacted Richard, and he said, yes, it gotten through. It was as much as a lot of our guides try to protect us, but it gotten through, and that I need to be more vigilant with my spray and with my affirmations.
Yeah, and I mean, isn't it helpful that we have each other?
Oh, yes.
I can always say, I'm not crazy, am I? And you guys can always confirm. Usually confirm before I ask you, actually. Maybe we should ask the same question for Anne. How do you protect yourself? And have you ever had this experience where you felt something dark?
I use Anita spray, which you can get on her Etsy account, I should say.
Great.
But Richard gave me a little devotional incantation before I channel. And most of the time I forget to use it. And so I've gotten better with this spray. Anita's been on my case about that. Mostly because I've been dealing with light figures. I mean, the figures that you're sending me are not dangerous figures. Sometimes with the channeling, and I think this was true with Abraham Lincoln today, when I can feel, when the type starts moving around, where the computer starts acting like it's got a life of its own, and where I start going, why am I doing this? Who am I? I shouldn't be doing this. As soon as I'm now beginning to realize that is a signal. And so then I reach for the spray and sage and spray and ask that any creatures that are not, any beings who are not of the light depart. And it seems to work. It's very interesting because you can start feeling quite depressed and kind of miserable, and you think, well, I'm kind of depressed. No, it's not necessarily coming from you. It can come anyway, in some circumstances from the outside.
Yes, I really want to confirm that, right? Remember that time when we all called each other and we were all like terribly unhappy one particular day and all had the same emotions on the same day. I do think it's really key to let people know that self-doubt is often the way, kind of negative forces show up for us. They sort of limit us because we get to this imposter syndrome, which everybody has in every profession. So we're not left out. Great. We have one question that's a viewer question, and that is just, how do you organize all this? How do you figure out your channels and when? And maybe you can even say a little bit about, for example, both of you said at one point, Judas is available and I'm not channeling Judas, Dave. That's up to you. Go ahead, Anne.
Yeah, because I don't feel I'm a strong enough channel in terms of my protection to be able to discern always what's dark and what's light. And both of you thought that he was not a dark figure. And, I didn't have any information one way or the other. So it seemed to me the better part of valor is to do nothing. And so I did nothing. I did not want to channel him. Now, mostly people come in when you ask them. There are occasions where I have felt, but most of the people I've felt have always been of the light. And I have heard from Richard that I am protected, but not to get lazy.
Yeah, well, maybe along those lines, we'll stick a little bit to Anne. There were channels that were coming through that you were like not so sure about.
Oh, that's right. I got, and I wasn't feeling right. It didn't seem right. So I got someone, I thought it was Robin Williams, but it didn't seem like Robin Williams. So I sent it off to Dave and Anita, and both at the same time, at separate moments, said, it's not a bad person, but it's not Robin Williams.
Yeah.
And I thought about this with, it's not a bad person. And I thought, wait a minute, I didn't invite him. So I'm getting rid of what I did for him, because this has got to be a choice from our end. It is not something that is available unless there's an invitation out. So at least in my case, boundaries have been difficult for me for my life, and I'm trying to be clear about it now.
Yeah, boundaries are very, very important in this work, right? And difficult to organize because we have to have boundaries for people on the planet, boundaries for people out in space. It's a lot of boundary making, but it is key.
Boundaries are boundaries. Practice is practice.
Boundaries are boundaries, right? And Anita, maybe you could say a little bit more about this too. I'm really curious because you also channel so many different characters. How do you choose who to channel, and how do you keep them organized?
Well, sometimes I don't know how to really answer that. I don't have like a system per se.
Mm.
Um, I totally trust my initial guides who are the archangels and Merlin and Richard. It's just I just know that they're there to protect me, and Jesus is always around at some point. Um, it's how they present themselves. For example, President John F. Kennedy has come over now twice, and his demeanor is, without a doubt, the former president of the United States. He is definitely John F. Kennedy. He made it without words that this is not about him, the man, but him, the presidency, and he's very polite. It's interesting. They're always very gentle and polite, and asking permission because we have our own free will. They're not saying you will do so. And that's one thing the Arcturians have taught me, that it is the law of the universe that they cannot violate our free will. So if I were to encounter a spirit that was demanding of me or trying to coerce me, I would know that it's not of the light, and it would be gone.
Excellent.
I sort of, kind of, just the loudest one or the one that's most prominent at that time. And there's some days when I just chill out. Some days I just cross over and hang out by a stream.
Yeah.
So it just depends. I think I'm protected in that way, that I'm not, my frequency isn't overdrawn, so to speak.
Yeah, it's definitely very important to keep a work-life balance, just as in every job too.
But David, I noticed you've been channeling other people, Harriet Tubman. You
Yes.
did, when I encountered Judas, I knew he was for you. Are you excited about that?
Yeah,
Because
I'm not sure I would have done it if you hadn't said, by the way, Judas is waiting. I wouldn't have done Judas, no way. But once I did do him, I was like, this is key for this time. And one thing that I notice is whoever I'm channeling, the message seems to be really important this day. Judas's message was kind of like, we all make mistakes and that's our fate. And I got more email back about that particular thing, because I think it's really, really important. I think these people are kind of locked in guilt. I think lots of us, we make mistakes and it just takes over for the rest of our lives. And so it seems very much key to the time who comes over seems to have that message for that day. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. I wouldn't have been so encouraged to do that without the two of you. So I really just want to say that it's just such a great copacetic relationship. I get so much out of working with both of you. You confirm so much, but also bring stuff up. You guys also keep me really honest, right? I can't be lazy. I have to do my work as I promised. Maybe, and we can just ask a sort of a new question here, and that is, what advice would you give if people are starting to do this work? A lot of people, some people can afford to go to these workshops and do this stuff, but not necessarily everybody. Some people, they don't have that. They live in a place where they wouldn't meet other like people or have this available to them for financial reasons. How can people develop these skills with or without the resources, financial resources? What do you think, Anne?
I think journaling. You can, there are different programs, and there's a book by Progoff who's very good at sort of teaching this in a way, but journaling either based on someone that you want to talk to, where you've done some study, you've been respectful of learning about that person, and then you ask and listen, and you write what you see or what you hear. And, it's okay if it comes from you or if it comes from them, because what you're generally getting is some sort of higher wisdom. So if you start second guessing yourself, you'll cut it off. If you can just open up, and I mean, I've done mine with writing or typing, but other people are visual or sensate. So whatever works for you, just do it. And don't expect it to be perfect.
Great. Same question for you, Anita. What do you think people should do to develop if they wish to develop their skills?
I believe that everyone has what I call a sixth sense. And I think it begins by going within. But it's also about not having a preconceived notion that I should be a David or an Anita or an Ann. I think pay attention to signs or noise. Like you said, this gentleman heard music. It could be, I knew someone who would always see 444 on license plates or on the clock, which is it's just a reminder that the angels are around you. And that would be an answer. She determined, okay, she made a deal with the angels asking a question that if I see 444, the answer is yes. If I see 777, the answer is no. She made it a game, and she expanded when she started accepting that that was the way she could hear. Everyone can hear and see. It's not, I have a saying, and I don't know where it came from, but I always go back to it when I start to doubt myself, which is, for those who believe, no explanation is necessary, and for those who do not, none is possible. And I think people need to just not look for confirmation outside of themselves. And Ann's idea of a journal is a really great one, to start writing things down and create your own manual of what works for you.
Great. Okay. And maybe I'll just add one more thing that I always say to my clients is, if you ask the universe a question, you'll get an answer. I often tell people verbalize that. Just go out and say, should I go to this university or not? And then just listen and see if somebody doesn't deliver the answer. In my experience, that usually works. You have to have A, the courage to ask the question, and B, you have to have the courage to listen, because the answer might be no, right? But people will deliver it. They'll show you the answer, usually, in my experience. So we'll go ahead and stop here. It was really marvelous to talk to both of you. For viewers, I will put a way for you to contact Ann and Anita to get your own channel readings in this YouTube spread here. You'll be able to find them and contact them. I highly recommend it. There's very talented people who will give you all they can to answer any questions that you have. So don't hesitate to contact either of them. Thanks so much, you guys. Maybe you could say for us, and before I put it in, maybe you could say how that people could contact you.
Oh, okay. I have an email, which is zenhorse12@gmail.com. And you can contact me through the blog, where you can hear what some of these people have to say. And that is at annweberblog.net.
Great. And how about you, Anita?
I have an Etsy shop, and it's by the name of my shop. It's kind of long. Do you want to just list it beneath, Dave, or do you want me to?
But if you say it, it'll help. I mean, go ahead.
Okay. I'm actually looking it up right now so that I don't say it incorrectly.
Okay, that's probably a smart idea.
It's www. Here, let me get it right here. Okay. It's www.etsy.com/shop/fairytale-end.
Great. Okay. Thanks so much. I will put both of those on the YouTube site for you, so you can contact them both. Thanks again, you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.